WNST week that is sure to be amazing. First and foremost, the WNST road trips are on sale now to Green Bay, Minnesota, Nashville, and an updated deluxe trip to London that we just put on sale because our other trip sold out. So it's all out there under the road trips tab. You can throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net. Caps move on to the second round. Pittsburgh will be involved. I am headed to Pittsburgh. This guy is headed back to Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and fisticuffs. And I'm not just talking hockey, Luke Jones. I mean, Machado and Pedroia and Orioles and Red Sox and bad blood, and Machado in the middle of all of this, sort of, kind of, again, maybe wittingly, unwittingly, who knows. We all develop reputations as life moves on, Luke Jones. But, look, they're playing great baseball, and they don't need this nonsense with the Red Sox, but it doesn't feel like a Buck Showalter team's going to back down from it either.
No, and, I mean, it didn't come to fisticuffs. It could have.
Easily.
First thing I'll say is I thought Manny Machado showed improved maturity and restraint in a situation that, I mean, just think about what happened last year with Ventura, and that was a pitch that hit him lower back, hit him in the butt, right around there. I mean, this was a pitch from Matt Barnes that came right near his head. I mean, could have easily hit him. And Manny's going to be upset there. I mean, anyone's going to be upset there.
Of course.
So to stand there like a robot and just go to first base, no one's going to do that. But he glared. He certainly wasn't happy, but he showed restraint. We asked him about it in the post-game clubhouse, and he said, "I guess it's maturity. I don't want to get suspended." And I think, as far as a big picture thing for the Orioles, and because of what you just said, this guy has a reputation. He has to wear it. That this all began back in 2014 with the thing with Donaldson and then throwing the bat. I mean, you're never going to live that down, and you are going to have a reputation, and you aren't going to get the benefit of the doubt.
By the way, and your dad would appreciate this, right? I'm reading this Jason Turbo book on the old Oakland A's, and there was a very famous Campy Campaneris, throwing a bat, and boy, that stuck with my dad. I knew about that. I saw it as a highlight, but anything that involves outside the lines or really involves fisticuffs, I mean, come on, we start celebrating the 25th anniversary of Robin Ventura and Nolan Ryan, right? Well, every year the Benitez, Tino Martinez thing, these things, Messina's brawl with, the Seattle Mariners that I remember happened in May. I mean, we remember the fights in baseball as much as we remember anything. And, maybe this is the day Machado grows up, because he will be continued to get tested in the same way A-Rod, Bonds, Griffey, Frank Thomas, any great hitter, Frank Robinson. I mean, who took more cheese than Frank Robinson during his career, right?
Well, I mean, and this goes back to the whole idea, look, you can pitch inside. I mean, that's part of the game. And I saw some fans talking about how Eduardo Rodriguez was throwing at Manny's knees, throwing at Scope's knees. Pitching inside, is that you have to do that if you're going to be successful. I mean, I'm sorry. That I have no problem with. What I do have a problem with is throwing at someone with the intent to hit them. And Matt Barnes said after the game he wasn't trying to throw at his head. Well, okay, even if you're willing to admit that, even if you're willing to say, okay, maybe I'll buy that you weren't trying to throw it at his head, he certainly was trying to hit him. And that inherently is why
he wasn't trying to throw a strike, right? I mean, right.
That's
I mean, we all know
inherently
that.
Any intent to hit a batter is dangerous, and frankly, this is something that needs to be, unwritten rules. And we talk about all this stuff. It shouldn't have a place in the game because, frankly, even the best pitchers in the game, they miss their spots. And think about it. The distance, and I'll give credit to Joshi, and a great baseball writer on Twitter I saw made this comment early Sunday evening. Even the best pitchers sometimes miss their spot from the distance of the waist up to the head. Even the best pitchers, they're going to miss some spots, and they're going to miss some spots badly from time to time. No pitcher has the perfect command to say, all right, I'm going to plunk this guy right in the butt to prove my point. That's why that whole line of thinking, and I know some old school baseball fans right now are going to say, oh, you don't understand the game? Baloney. You don't have to love baseball. You don't have to accept that to be a true fan of baseball. It's something that's garbage. And, frankly, it's one thing to stick up for your teammate, which, this really went into what Dustin Pedroia had to say, and, the whole idea that, okay, and this all stemmed from Manny Machado sliding into second base. Was that a bad slide? Yeah, it was a bad slide. Do I think it was a dirty slide with an intent to hurt? No, and Dustin Pedroia, frankly, didn't think that. Even Friday night, he had a more level head about it than even his own manager. So even his point that he made was, okay, even in the unwritten rules, when something like that happens and you're going to get plunked for it, you get plunked in the rear end, the next night, first at bat, you go to first base, and it's over. That's supposed to be how it works in the thinking of most baseball players who are talking about the unwritten rules. But he even acknowledged this, and it's what really made this so fascinating, not just the interaction between Machado and Pedroia, while this was all going on, while Machado returned to the on-deck circle when they realized it was a foul ball and not a hit batter, was that it was clear that Pedroia wasn't cool with what happened, and he was really upset about it. You can check out the Buy a Toyota audio vault at WNST.net and hear him say it was a very brief interaction with the Boston media. He flat out said, "I love Manny Machado." Was it a bad slide? Yeah. Do I think he was trying to hurt me though? Absolutely not. And he acknowledged that there's a certain way these kinds of things are handled, and I still think that thinking is dumb. But I'll at least hear that a little bit. I won't hear any conversation of throwing at someone's head, which is just completely it's complete rubbish. It's nonsense. Has no place in baseball. But to hear Pedroia even talk about it, it amazes me even more that Machado showed the restraint that he did in not charging the mound, because we're talking about we're less than 11 months removed from him charging the mound against.
Yeah, I don't know what the right thing to say here is, right, or do, because you certainly don't want this to become something that they're doing to you, and you don't really feel like the commissioner's there to protect you, right? I mean, it's kind of like policing in America to some degree, right? If you're in the wrong neighborhood, calling the cops may be the wrong thing to do, or at least you feel like that. You feel like, I'm going to get a gun and take care of things myself. And, and in the case of Machado, there is a point where you're like, hey, dude, you can't be throwing at my head on a Sunday afternoon when we're losing by a couple of runs. And be a division rival on top of that. So I don't think it's as much machismo as we've seen in the past with stupid bravado, but I do think there comes a point where if you're the $400 million player and you're the team with that player and you're in first place, you can't let this happen, but then you're going to look to New York and say, well, what are you going to do about this? Even the guy in the other dugout who's the all-star doesn't think this is cool. Where is the end of the tit-for-tat thing that's going on, right?
Well, that's where you just said it. I mean, baseball needs to come down heavier on these guys. Whether you're talking about the individual throwing the pitch.
Well, come on, a guy pisses dirty, they throw him out of the sport for 80 games, right?
When you're talking about 8 or 10 games, how much is that really?
For a pitcher?
Last year we talked about this with Ventura. Speaking nothing about him and what happened with the tragedy in the off season. He got a slap on the wrist. He missed one start. It's just. What is that? That's enabling right there. That's telling me that it's okay. And one of the most interesting points, and I'm going to sound a little bit like an old guy here, but the thought came to mind. Every Sunday now, the Orioles have one of the clever promotions that they've done. And minor league baseball started this years ago. They let the kids run the bases after the game. It's the bottom of the 8th inning. It's a 6-0 game. You have all these kids at this point who, frankly, are excited about getting a run on the field in the next 20 minutes. And
I didn't get to do that when I was a kid, did you? I'm being serious. I went to Memorial Stadium my whole childhood. I was a junior Oriole. I got lucky one time and had my name pulled, on the Crown Central Petroleum thing, and I got to sweep the base, third base. And I played pitch, hit, and run, and I won in Patterson Park in the summer of 1977 when I was 9, and I did get to hit on Memorial Stadium's field, but other than with a press pass that I had in the late 80s and that I utilized under the tutelage of Jack Gibbons, I stood on the field of Memorial Stadium for a baseball game. For football games, first time I was on the field out in right center field for Joe Namath in 73 because they had stands out there in the outfield, but standing on the field, that's a big deal when you're a kid, I think, right? I don't know what it means to a 10-year-old these days, but I didn't get a chance to do that as a kid. I think it's kind of cool.
No, it is. But the point I was making, you have all these kids who are at the game getting ready to do this, and then they see this nonsensical crap that goes on in baseball. And it's something that is so tired. I'm so tired of hearing about the unwritten rules and playing the game the right way and code and all that nonsense. And all I was thinking was, here you have all these kids that are excited to be here, about to run on the field, run the bases, and they see this nonsense. And I'm just thinking, as much as we all talk about the future of baseball and wanting to grow the popularity of the game, I'm like, yeah, this is something that's really helping the sport, having a bunch of millionaires act like children out there. And, and it doesn't even stem back to, questioning Manny Machado's slide or not. I totally understood the Red Sox being ticked off Friday night. Not necessarily that Machado was maliciously dirty or trying to hurt Pedroia. I mean, Pedroia even said he didn't think he was trying to hurt him. But I understood them being annoyed, but this idea that someone's going to take matters into his own hands and throw a baseball like a missile at someone, whether it's in the head or whether it's, any part of their body. Again, none of these guys are so perfect with their command. Otherwise, you'd have guys who never walk anyone, they never throw any balls. You don't see that. Guys make mistakes. Accidents happen. Guys get hit in the head by accident. We've seen it a couple times. Buster Posey earlier this season. I mean, it's just something that frankly angers me. And when I continue to hear nonsense of, you just mentioned, I'm not saying you're being nonsensical, but the idea that you have to police this yourself because the commissioner and the league office in New York continues to just give guys a tap on the wrist for throwing baseballs at people. It's just something that really chaps me. And again, what message is it sending when you are trying to grow the game, trying to get more kids interested in baseball, when you have a bunch of these guys just acting like complete idiots throughout all this stuff? Whether we're talking about getting ticked off about a bat flip or someone smiling when they hit a home run, or
not running fast enough, or running too fast, or tripping over second base, or doing a bunny hop, or I was going to tell you about kids, right? Because you mentioned the kids thing, and I don't rant on the air the way I used to and just carry on for 20 minutes. I have conversations with people, but I'll go on a 30-second rant here to adjunct what you're talking about. I've watched hockey this week, right? I've traveled across the continent, across 2 countries, pulled my passport out that I have sitting here on the desk, that I had to hand at the border, and I go into Canada and I watch hockey being played. Dude, I saw a video circulating over the weekend, and I almost shared it, but it was like a loop. It was a 40-second loop of kids in brawls in hockey. Little kids, 8, 9, 10-year-old pipsqueak, little guys skating the length of the ice, dropping their gloves, brawling, like Roadhouse style, like 15 kids all punching each other on skates, and they're all 4 feet tall, and it was on and on and on. There was like a loop of all of these kid brawls in hockey. And I thought to myself, right there, if you're Austin Matthews or you're Alex Ovechkin or you're Gary Bettman, who I bumped into on the club level in Toronto the other night, or if you're Barry Trotz, or if you're Ted Leonsis or Zach Leonsis, or you're a referee, or if you're a scout, there should be no one who would watch that and say that there should ever be a fight in hockey again. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's because I know so many people that have their kids involved in sports now. I had Arnie Spanier on. You can go listen to it in the Buy a Toyota audio vault. His kid is a aspiring hockey player up in Vermont. He used to do overnights here at WNST back in the early days when I was syndicated 20 years ago. And, my partner Tom Kapp, his son was involved in hockey. Hockey's a great kid's sport until that crap goes on, in the same way it can't be tolerated in football or basketball or I don't know why in baseball and hockey this bench clearing thing is cool, and in the NBA it's a Ron Artest, or in football certainly if you grab a guy's mask, you're going to be sending money to the commissioner on Monday morning. You at least know that much, and I know in the NFL they want to have the hanging commissioner, and we've been through the good and bad of that with Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson and everything else, but at some point there needs to be some hall of justice for all of these sports so that there is a real punishment if you're going to throw at the head of a $400 million baseball player, or if you're going to go at the knees of Tom Brady, or you're going to intentionally maim Alex Ovechkin with a hip check, as we saw the other night with Kadri. How easy would it just to be to throw a forearm shiver and break LeBron James's nose in Game 1 and just play without whoever you decide to be the Bill Laimbeer of your team? You can't have that happen. You can't.
And this, for me personally, this isn't even about something that that I'm so strongly opposed to violence. I mean, UFC, that's sanctioned. Like that's part of the gig. That's what they do. If you don't want kids being exposed to that, then parents don't let their kids watch that. But taking kids to a baseball game, or you're seeing this in various sports. And look, I played football. Like at a very inconsequential level. It's a full contact sport. You're going to have some things that happen with that, but in a sport like baseball, where you don't like it because someone looked at you the wrong way or someone flipped their bat, and suddenly you're gonna take this sphere that can be a weapon that could kill someone if you hit them in the wrong spot in the head, and you're going to throw it at them. I mean, it's just something that again. I don't want to hear the old school people, that's how they play the game, that's how they police, baloney. That the only reason that continues is because we allow that to continue, and it goes back to start giving these guys real suspensions for throwing at hitters, and you know what? You'll see that stuff disappear very quickly because teams will suddenly realize, we don't want to lose our best pitcher, or we don't want to lose our top top position player because a brawl started. It's just something that I'm really tired of it. And why I'm really tired of it? We've spent 20 minutes talking about it now, and it's over.
And the Orioles are first place.
The Orioles just won 2 out of 3. And look, Sunday's game was ugly, and we'll talk about Kevin Gausman here in the next few minutes. But this is a team that's playing really well, and the couple entertaining games this weekend, and we're talking about this nonsense again because this is what continues to happen in baseball.
All right, Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore Luke. He is Luke at WNST.net. He will be at the ballpark throughout this Rays series. We're all getting ready for Thursday night with the Ravens draft. Really not a lot to report on the Ravens over the weekend, right? I mean, it's status quo. It is what it is. We'll see them on Thursday night. But the Orioles, as well as the Capitals, as well as the Wizards, as well as the cross season for those who enjoy such, boy, this is, I got these road trips. I've been working on that since Thursday. We got an unbelievable trip up to Green Bay, Nashville. They're 2 weeks apart. The schedule's out now. They're on the clock Thursday night. And between now and then, the Orioles are going to play 4 games, right? I mean, it's kind of it's a crazy time right now. And the Orioles have done, I don't want to say the impossible to me. I didn't think it was impossible for them to begin the season in first place or doing well. But through 16 games, you can't ask for more than to be playing this kind of baseball right now. And they've had good starting pitching. They haven't had to, overwhelm their bullpen. They've hit the ball when they've needed to, but they've had pitching. They've had pitching. They've had pretty good pitching, Luke, and pitching is the key to all of this. And they're not winning these games 10-8. They're going to have to at some point. But, for now, the 2-0 and the 4-2s, I'll take that right now. They've overachieved through this point. They're not going to play 750 ball the rest of the way,
sure.
Right? I mean, that's
right. I mean, that's obvious. But you just said it. How about the fact that they've pitched the way that they have, with Chris Tillman on the disabled list, Zach Britton on the disabled list the last week, and certainly Brad Brock 3 saves, Darren O'Day and Michael Givens doing big time work for them on Saturday night, and Kevin Gausman, their opening day starter, has been horrible so far this year. So for them to do what they've done with those factors working against them, that bodes that actually bodes pretty well moving forward. And the fact that Machado, all the drama of the weekend aside, hasn't really hit the ball a whole lot so far. Mark Trumbo, save for his opening day home run, really hasn't hit the ball. They haven't had everything go perfectly, is my point. No, they've had other things go well. Certainly, Wade Miley pitching extremely well, and guys like Jason Aquino and Alec Asher giving them good starts, and I'm not sure you can expect all those things to continue. But the point is, they haven't been firing on all cylinders, yet they're 12-5. They have the best record in the American League, and things are going pretty darn well, even with some of those other factors working against them. And certainly you hope some of those things are going to improve. I realize there's a lot of hand-wringing over Kevin Gausman, but let's also remember, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I've heard more than a few people on Sunday were making the comparison to Jake Arrieta in Baltimore. Kevin Gausman had a 3.77 ERA over the last 3 seasons. Jake Arrieta had never sniffed anything close to that in terms of consistency while he's with the Orioles. So let's not bury this kid. Let's not call him a bust. He's off to a bad start. It's fair to be concerned, but let's also not dismiss the plenty of success that he's had, and he has enough of a track record that gives me confidence that he's going to get this thing figured out. Because it's been out of character for him. He's been walking guys. It's something he's never really done. The split finger or the split changeup was better on Sunday, but that still hasn't been much of a factor for him. It's one of those things with him specifically. I get it being frustrated. Believe me, hearing him talk after Sunday's game, he's frustrated. He even alluded to the fact that, hey, I'm not doing my job. They gave me the ball on opening day, and everyone else is pitching really well, and he flat out said, I pitched like crap so far. He has. So he realizes it. He's working to get it remedied, but let's not act like Kevin Gausman's been a complete failure here in Baltimore, and comparing him to Arrieta or guys like that. That's just completely ridiculous.
Well, he's going to take the ball every 5th day, right? I mean, there's not another option here.
I mean, if he has an ERA like this in late May, okay, we'll talk about it then. But they're going to give him the ball every 5th day, right?
Well, and as they should, and here come the Rays into town, and I have a few previews up in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault with various Rays folks about where they stand in the world. They haven't been bad, and they've done one thing they haven't done in a couple of years, which is hit the baseball. I mean, and they've done that pretty consistently here through the first month.
Yeah, what's interesting, their pitching hasn't been very good. I mean, you look at all 5 teams in the division, and they've given up the most runs, but they've also scored the most runs. They've outscored the Red Sox. They've outscored the Yankees. Yankees have played a couple fewer games, but they've outscored the Orioles. I mean, Tampa Bay, their MO, even at the last couple of years under Joe Madden, was good pitching, and they'd figure out a way to score enough runs. To this point, I mean, they're 500. They haven't been great, but they've been better than most people would have thought. And I think you still look at that team on paper and say, well, you would think maybe not the bullpen, but you would think that rotation has a chance to be pretty good, and you would think their pitching they right their pitching a little bit, at least with the rotation. But they've hit the ball to this point, and I mean, I think the story of the AL East so far, one has been how dreadful Toronto has been, 5-13, and really looking like a team that if they don't turn it around quickly, they're going to be buried and not able to get up off the mat. But the other 4 teams in the division, specifically the Orioles, Yankees, and Red Sox, but Tampa Bay not lagging too far behind, but it's been a pretty competitive, pretty tough division so far, other than the Blue Jays, and Orioles need to be ready and need to continue pitching well. I mean, prior to Sunday, 8 of their previous 9 games have been quality starts, and the bullpen, even without Zach Britton, has done a nice job. So definitely will have a challenge, a Rays team that swinging the bat's much better than anyone would have anticipated, that's for sure.
Luke, last thing for you. Every time Rodriguez takes the hill, right, every time Arrieta, we saw Feldman the other day, all these guys, I mean, Boom Boom Hunter, I remember all the trades, you remember all the handshakes at that point in the universe. Still okay with the Rodriguez trade? I mean, I am. I'm just saying, like, you say you don't trade within division because of these reasons, and it feels like every time there's a turn-up, they're going to see Rodriguez, and at some point we're going to judge this 3 years in, and he's going to be 7-5 with a 4.2 ER, whatever the number is going to be, because they haven't seen the end of him, and it looks like, I don't say he's going to be a stalwart for the Red Sox, but he's a guy they want to give the ball to every 5th day. That's for sure.
I mean, he's been solid. I mean, he certainly had a good performance on Sunday. I mean, I'm not going to dismiss what he did on Sunday whatsoever. He pitched well. I mean, the Orioles, we know they've had their issues against left-handed pitching, and they've had their issues there. They've won some games against left-handed starters this year, but they haven't exactly been tearing the cover off the ball. They haven't been tearing the cover off the ball anyway, very much. But I think with him, the jury's still out whether he's going to be anything more than a league average kind of starter. I mean, his career ERA at this point is 4.28. That's not anything to write home about. But I'll go back to this. Just because the Orioles pulled the trigger on that trade in 2014, that wasn't a guaranteed winning the World Series. I mean, ask the Blue Jays about that. They traded for David Price. Did they win a World Series? No. And they didn't keep him.
You try. So, you do your best, right?
Yeah. I mean, and the thing was, Andrew Miller was lights out for the Orioles. I mean, he was terrific over those 2.5 months that they had him.
They got what they bargained for.
Yeah. So, I mean, would you have loved to have, with revisionist history and hindsight being 20/20, would you have liked to have given him the contract that they ended up giving to Darren O'Day a year later? Yeah. I'll sign off on that, sure.
Look, the Reds still want to undo the Pappas trade, right? I mean,
right. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with that. And again, Eduardo Rodriguez, he's had some health issues with the knee. Some of the same issues that you heard about with him, with work ethic, sometimes the attitude not always being great. That was something that leaked out, toward the end of his time with the Orioles. If you follow him closely in Boston, some of that has been there a little bit. There was even some talk last year about some entitlement there, even with him, having the injury and then kind of expecting that he would have his place once he was healthy, and he didn't pitch all that well. He had a 4.7 ERA last year. So, talented kid. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's certainly the potential's there for him to be an above-average, top half of the rotation guy eventually. But just because he pitched well on Sunday, I'm not going to change my opinion on that. Buck Showalter says this all the time. The idea of trading, it's supposed to be fair. I mean, the idea if you keep swindling some team, like the Orioles have continued to do with the Seattle Mariners, amazingly, with even with Seth Smith being on the shelf, I'd still do that trade 100 times to get rid of Yovani Gallardo in that spot. But the idea is both sides win from a trade. Both sides benefit from a trade. The Orioles got Andrew Miller for the time they had him. He was terrific. They may or may not have won that Detroit series without him. Who knows? But he did his job. He was great. And the Red Sox, they got a prospect who, to this point, has shown promise, but certainly not a finished product by any means. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'm not one that's going to. I'm not going to beat up that trade. Now, if you want to talk to me about Kyle Davies or Zach Davies for Gerardo Parra, when if you remember 2 years ago, I thought the Orioles should have been sellers, not buyers at the deadline. That's the kind of trade that bugs me.
Tell me about how you feel about giving away Miguel Gonzalez. You want to go through that one again?
Well, yeah, don't get me started on that one. Hey, I'll even
we'll
go
be
back
here
to
all day.
That one. I'm fine with releasing Miguel Gonzalez if you have better than Mike Wright and Tyler Wilson to replace him, which is what the Orioles did last year. That's where I had the issue. If you had Dylan Bundy ready to be what Dylan Bundy looks like he's becoming now, if he had been that ready a year ago and ready to step into that role from day one, then all right. I'll still say you probably shouldn't have just outright got rid of Gonzalez. You should have held on to him and maybe tried to trade him or something like that. But that was more so you got rid of him for those guys were your alternatives. That's where, to me, I take the issue there.
You get sideways right about then, right?
I do. Hey, I was always a Miguel guy. Was always a good story. I'm glad to see that he's rediscovered it in Chicago after he had a rough half in 2015, second half, but it's water under the bridge now, I suppose. But hey, meanwhile, while we're talking about all that, Orioles have gotten, other than Gausman, some pretty darn good starting pitching so far this year.
And they need to get some more of it heading into this series here with the Rays. Luke will be at Camden Yards each and every night getting ready for Thursday night. What a week, right? Caps are going to get going on Thursday night. Draft starting on Thursday night. I'm going to Pittsburgh next week. We got the Wizards involved in this thing. And, the Ravens are going to have 8, 10, and, up to 25 new players by the time they go through the free agent process here over the next week. It's an exciting time all the way around. I mean, the Terps got a Duke transfer. It's been nutty around here the last week or two, hasn't it?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, this is the time of year. Baseball's getting into full force. I mean, you mentioned hockey in the NBA. I mean, and Ravens. We got the schedule this past week, so you get a little bit of context there. Once the draft, when you and I are talking a week from now, we'll have a much better idea of what this football team is going to look like, and it won't be complete. It won't be a finished product, but post-draft, for the most part, you know what your football team's going to look like. Save a couple pieces, couple subtractions here or there. So we'll have a much better idea of what we're dealing with. And then there's a pointless game-by-game predictions going through the schedule, figuring out what the record's going to be. Then we have a little more context to try to figure that out. Before the draft, anyone asks me what the Ravens' record's going to be, looking at the schedule, I have no idea, because I have no idea how they're addressing the many holes that they still have to fill. We'll have a much better idea once draft weekend has come and gone.
He is Luke Jones. You can find him, Luke, at WNST.net, as well as Baltimore Luke out on Twitter. And, of course, our road trips are on sale now. We're going to Green Bay in November, right before Thanksgiving. We're going to Nashville in early November, right after Halloween. Obviously, London's been there the whole time. We have a new deluxe package up. And we have Minneapolis as well in the third week of October. It's going to be beautiful there, doing a Mall of America tour. So lots of amazing stuff this year. If you've ever been on one of our road trips, we're offering $100 off the next 2 weeks. If you want to get on the trip, we're trying to incent some folks to sign up early and get involved. Green Bay, we're doing Milwaukee and Green Bay. We have direct trips, as well as 2 trips to Nashville, Minneapolis, as well as London. You can learn more under the Road Trips tab at WNST.net. And, of course, all of our stuff this week, Caps, Wizards, draft stuff, Orioles stuff, Rays stuff, all of that in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. From anywhere in the world, you can download podcasts, listen when you want, how you want, where you want, to what you want. It is the WNST Audio Vault, and it's always there for you. It's always brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel, and our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox free of charge. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Exciting time, toweling off, selling road trips, getting ready for Pittsburgh and the Penguins, trying to get the Wizards through this series, and the first place, top of the charts, Baltimore Orioles. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. My dude.